Little brother, you lack what it takes to manage a business.
You can call me Brandon Kessler. I have been the backbone of our family's boutique brand Sneered hotels for 15 years. I wasn't after corner offices or titles at 42. I just ensured that our 8 locations in the Northeast operated efficiently, that our employees felt appreciated, and that our visitors continued to return. Danielle, my sister, was standing across the desk, her arms folded. Since our father took over as chairman, she had been the president of Sneered for precisely 11 days. Apparently, her first executive action was to fire me. She went on, "The board agrees we need fresh perspectives. While I emptied my desk drawer, we've hired a consultant from Marriott to handle your responsibilities." I nodded while maintaining a neutral expression. She referred to the board that she had appointed last week, which included our father, herself, and 2 of her business school pals. My sister had always been the company's spokesperson, attracting investors, giving talks at trade shows, and claiming the credit for our expansion. In the interim, I coordinated renovations, negotiated with suppliers, and cultivated relationships with employees, the unsexy labor that kept us in the black. As she looked at her watch, she said, "You'll get 6 months severance. Human Resources has the paperwork ready." I was cautious not to break anything when I put my family's pictures in a box. Last in line was the framed photo of our grandfather outside our first Burlington hotel, the one Danielle had never bothered to hang at her workplace.
"Nothing to say?" she asked directly.
Her flawless manicure complemented her flawless blazer. Not even slightly out of place. I simply grinned mockingly. "Good luck with the Westbrook renovation." A brief panic flashed through her eyes. Our largest property, Westbrook, had renovations that were both over budget and behind time. She would now need to figure out the solution without my help. "We'll manage just fine," she said after she had recovered. "My consultant has turned around properties twice that size." Without saying another word, I picked up my package, nodded once more, and left. In a 15-minute meeting, 15 years of labor were rejected. What Danielle was unaware of, or perhaps had overlooked in her haste for power, was that our father had taken me aside 5 years prior and given me counsel that completely altered my life. "Never put all your eggs in one basket, Brandon," he'd advised you. "The hotel business is in our blood, but land is where the real value lies." I had heeded the instructions, moving stealthily while my sister gathered honors and titles. As I drove away from our corporate office in Boston, I wasn't worried. I was patient. And patience would pay off when the lease renewals came due in just 3 months. I grew up watching my father build Skyridge hotels from a single struggling property in Burlington, Vermont into a respected regional chain. While Danielle shadowed him at industry events and investor meetings, I preferred following our maintenance staff through back hallways, learning how the buildings actually function. By 16, I could troubleshoot a malfunctioning HVAC system or negotiate with linen suppliers, as well as any adult on payroll. "Your sister sees the big picture," my father would say, not unkindly. "You see the details that make it possible."
It was a balance that worked until it didn't.
As our father aged, Danielle's ambition grew. She began bringing in consultants who produced glossy reports suggesting organizational restructuring, and she talked about national expansion, celebrity partnerships, and lifestyle branding. Sometimes I wondered if she actually remembered we were in the business of giving people a comfortable place to sleep. 5 years ago, when our father first mentioned stepping back, I saw the writing on the wall. During a routine review of our finances, I noticed our 3 most profitable properties, Burlington, Portland, and Westbrook, were all operating on land we leased rather than owned. The original owners had been elderly when we signed 99-year leases decades ago, and now their heirs were looking to sell. "It's a vulnerability," I told my father over lunch at his favorite steakhouse. "If someone buys that land and raises our rates, we're stuck." He nodded slowly. "I've been meaning to address that, but with the new property in Providence taking all our capital." "I could buy them," I said carefully, "personally, then lease back to Sneered at the same rates." My father studied me over his glasses. "That would require significant personal investment, Brandon." "I've been saving," I replied simply, "and I believe in our company." The next day, he connected me with our bank. 3 months later, I owned the land under our 3 flagship hotels. The company remained a tenant with a 5-year preferential lease agreement that would need renewal. "Does Danielle know about this arrangement?" my father had asked as we signed the papers. "It's all in the corporate documents," I said. "But she doesn't read those unless she has to." He chuckled. "Your sister sees the forest. You see the trees. Someday she'll understand how important that is." Now, driving home from my last day at Ski Reach, I wondered if that day had finally arrived. I hadn't missed the subtle changes over the past year. Danielle excluding me from strategic meetings, questioning my budget requests, reassigning my best staff. The groundwork for my removal had been laid long before today's conversation. The morning after being fired, I woke at the same time as always, 5:30 a.m. For 15 years, I'd start my day reviewing overnight reports from our properties, addressing any issues before they could escalate. Today, my phone remained silent. No emergencies, no fires to put out, just silence. I made coffee and sat on my back porch overlooking Boston Harbor. The container ships moved silently across the water, constant and deliberate. I'd always admired their efficiency. No wasted movement, no need for recognition, just the steady business of carrying value from one place to another. My phone buzzed. A text from Miguel, our head of maintenance at the Westbrook property. "Heard what happened. They're lost, man. New consultant already making changes. Cutting corners on the renovation. Not good." I typed back a simple thanks but didn't offer advice. Not my problem anymore. Another message came through, this one from our father. "Breakfast at Rosie's. 8 a.m. Rosie's was a diner 2 blocks from our first corporate office. We hadn't eaten there together in years. When I arrived, he was already in a corner booth, looking older than I remembered. He nodded as I sat down. "She told me after the fact," he said without preamble. "I would have handled it differently." "But you didn't stop it," I observed. "Not a question." He sighed, stirring his coffee. "Danielle thinks Skyreach needs to evolve, become more corporate, less family-style management." "And you agree?" "I think," he paused, choosing his words carefully, "that your sister has a vision for growth that the board finds compelling." The waitress brought our usual orders without asking. Black coffee and blueberry pancakes for him, eggs and toast for me. Some things hadn't changed. "The land," he said after she left. "Danielle doesn't fully understand the lease arrangements." "I cut my eggs precisely. The corporate documents explain everything. You know she doesn't read the fine print." He gave me a pointed look. "The renewal comes up soon." 3 months, I confirmed. "I've already spoken with my lawyer about terms." My father set down his fork. "What are you planning, Brandon?" The question hung between us. In that moment, I realized I'd been expecting this conversation for years, preparing for it even. The quiet, reliable son finally having leverage over the favored daughter. I'd imagined satisfaction, vindication. Instead, I just felt tired. "Market rate leases," I said finally. "Nothing more, nothing less." He nodded slowly. "That will significantly impact our operating costs." "Yes," I met his gaze. "It will." We finished our breakfast in silence. As we stepped outside, he placed a hand on my shoulder. "Your sister sees business as a game to win," he said. "You've always seen it as a foundation to build on. Don't forget that difference." I watched him walk away, his shoulders slightly stooped with age. For the first time, I saw clearly what had been in front of me all along. This wasn't just about Danielle underestimating me. It was about our father enabling a rift that had been growing for decades. I returned home and opened my home office. On the wall hung the original plans for our Burlington hotel, framed when I purchased the land beneath it.
Time to focus on foundations. 2 weeks after my dismissal, Danielle finally called. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her carefully measured message.
Brandon, we need to discuss the transition. Some files are missing. Call me back. No apology. No acknowledgement that she'd fired her brother after 15 years of service.
Just business as usual.
I deleted the message and spent the afternoon meeting with an old college friend who'd become a commercial real estate developer.
The next day, she appeared at my condo.
When I opened the door, she brushed past me into the living room.
"You're ignoring me," she said.
"I'm respecting your decision to remove me from company business." I remained standing while she sat uninvited on my couch. "What files are you missing? Vendor contracts, maintenance schedules, the complete renovation plans for Westbrook." She frowned. "In financial documents, there's a gap in our property lease information." "Everything is in the shared drive," I replied. "Organized by property and department, just like always."
"Well, your organization system isn't exactly intuitive."
She crossed her legs, her designer heel bouncing with irritation. "And your replacement needs context." I poured myself a coffee without offering her one. "My replacement is a hospitality consultant who's turned around properties twice our size. I'm sure he can figure out a filing system." Her eyes narrowed at hearing her own words thrown back at her. "This isn't helpful, Brandon. The company needs—" "I don't work for the company anymore," I interrupted. "Remember?" Danielle stood, smoothing her skirt. "Fine. I'll have legal request the documents formally." "Do what you need to do," I said, walking toward the door. Our conversation was over. A week later, a certified letter arrived from Skirich's lawyer requesting all documents pertaining to company operations. I forwarded it to my own attorney, who responded with a detailed list of everything already available on company servers and a polite reminder that personal notes and materials were my property.
Meanwhile, I started receiving calls from Skirich employees.
The new consultant was implementing efficiency measures, cutting staff hours, deferring maintenance, replacing long-time suppliers with cheaper alternatives.
Morale was plummeting. Guests were noticing.
Rather than satisfaction, I felt a strange hollowness. These were people I'd worked with for years, some I'd personally hired. Their livelihoods were being threatened by my sister's vision and my absence. Then came the email from our property insurance provider requesting clarification on recent ownership changes affecting 3 key properties. Apparently, Danielle had attempted to update the insurance policies and encountered the truth. The company didn't own the land under our most profitable hotels. I did.
I forwarded the email to my lawyer without responding. The next morning, my father called.
"Did you know?" His voice was tight. "Danielle doesn't read legal documents."
Pass.
A heavy sigh. "She's called an emergency board meeting. Says you hidden critical information from the company." "Nothing was hidden," I replied evenly. "Every lease agreement is properly documented. The company has been paying me rent for 5 years." "Paying you?" He sounded genuinely confused. "The accounting shows payments to BK Holdings. She thought that was a property management company."
BK Holdings? Brandon Kessler Holdings?
My sister had been signing off on financial statements for years without realizing she was approving payments to her own brother. "The board meeting is tomorrow," my father continued. "You should be there."
"I'm not on the board anymore," I reminded him.
"Brandon," his voice softened, "this is still our family business." After we hung up, I sat at my desk, turning my grandfather's old hotel key between my fingers, the same key that opened the first property my father had transformed into Skyreach. Family business indeed. But families were supposed to look out for each other.
My lawyer called an hour later.
Skeeridge's attorneys are requesting information about lease renewals. How do you want to proceed?
I made my decision.
Send them the new terms. Market rate. No special considerations. The Westbrook Hotel stood 8 stories tall on the corner of Ocean Avenue, its large windows reflecting the morning light off Casco Bay. I'd personally overseen its renovation from a tired motor lodge into one of our most distinctive properties. Now I sat in my car across the street, watching guests stream through its doors, unaware of the corporate drama unfolding behind the scenes. My phone buzzed with a text from Patricia, my lawyer. They received the new lease terms, expecting a response today. I'd known the numbers would shock them. The below-market rates I'd offered 5 years ago had saved Sneered nearly $2 million annually across the 3 properties. The new terms would eliminate that advantage entirely. As I watched, a familiar silver Mercedes pulled into the reserved parking spot near the entrance.
Danielle.
She wasn't supposed to be in Portland today. I sank lower in my seat as she strode into the building, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing emphatically. Curiosity got the better of me. I called Miguel. Your sister is on the warpath, he answered without greeting. Emergency inspection. Brought the new consultant, too.
What are they looking for?
Property documents, blueprints. Said something about structural assessment. He lowered his voice. Between us, I think they're trying to figure out if they can challenge your ownership claim. After thanking him, I drove to the Portland Public Records Office. Using my laptop, I pulled up the original deed transfers, property surveys, and lease agreements. All perfectly legal, all properly filed as expected. What I didn't expect was what I found in the adjacent county records, a permit application filed 2 years ago by Danielle using her married name. A development permit for a large-scale commercial property on undeveloped oceanfront land just outside Portland city limits. I checked the business entity, Kessler Vision LLC, not Sneered, a separate company entirely with my sister as the sole proprietor. Further digging revealed similar permits in Burlington and near our Westbrook property.
All filed by the same LLC, all for competing hotel developments. The realization hit like a physical blow.
While I'd been faithfully managing our family's hotels, Danielle had been planning to launch her own competing chain. She hadn't fired me because she thought I was incompetent. She'd fired me because I was in the way of her true ambitions.
I called Patricia immediately. I need you to look into a company called Kessler Vision LLC.
2 days later, we had the full picture. Danielle had been courting investors for her own luxury hotel brand for nearly 3 years. Her business plan, which Patricia had obtained through a contact, explicitly mentioned leveraging expertise and clientele developed at Sneered and targeting the same markets where our most successful properties operated. The morning of the emergency board meeting, I received a call from an unexpected source, Vincent Ross, one of Danielle's business school friends who sat on our board. I've seen the lease renewal terms, he said without preamble, and I've heard rumors about Kessler Vision.
Not just rumors, I replied. A long pause.
I respected your father. That's why I joined this board. Another pause. Danielle assured us you were stepping away voluntarily, that you wanted to explore other opportunities.
Did she mention her own other opportunities?
A heavy sigh. No, that's why I'm calling. I heard papers shuffling. The board meeting is at 2. I think you should know that Danielle is going to propose Sneered sell the Westbrook, Burlington, and Portland properties. Says the lease terms make them unprofitable.
The final piece clicked into place. She wanted Sneered to sell the hotels so her new company could acquire them at distressed prices.
The buildings, not the land, creating a complicated situation where her new venture would become my tenant.
Thank you for telling me, I said. I didn't tell you anything, Vincent replied and hung up. I sat very still, letting cold rage wash through me. This wasn't just business anymore. This was betrayal on a level I hadn't imagined. Instead of attending the board meeting, I flew to New York to meet with Julian Hayes, CEO of Commonwealth Hotels. We crossed paths at industry events over the years, and he'd once attempted to recruit me. At the time, I declined out of loyalty to my family's business. Now that loyalty felt misplaced. Interesting timing, Julian remarked as we settled in his corner office overlooking Central Park. I heard Sneered is considering divesting some properties. News traveled fast in the hospitality world. 3 properties, I confirmed. Their most profitable ones. He leaned forward. And you happen to own the land beneath them. I nodded. A situation my sister failed to appreciate until recently. Julian's smile was all business. So what exactly are you proposing, Brandon? A partnership. Commonwealth acquires the buildings when Sneered sells. I maintain ownership of the land but offer preferential lease terms to you. I slid a folder across his desk, detailed financials, current operations, and my proposal. While Julian reviewed the documents, I gazed out at the park. 15 years at Sneered, and I'd never had an office with a view like this. Danielle had insisted the best spaces were needed for client meetings in her own office. Always the face of the company, always front and center. These properties fit our expansion strategy, Julian said finally. But I'm curious, why not simply raise the rent and force your sister to keep operating them? You'd make more money. Because she's already planning to launch a competing hotel chain, I explained. One that would directly target Sneered's market. His eyebrows rose. While still running Sneered? That's ambitious. That's one word for it. I kept my voice neutral. I believe her plan was to devalue these properties, have Sneered sell them, then acquire them through her new venture at reduced prices. With you as her landlord? Julian chuckled. Awkward. I prefer to choose my business partners more carefully. I met his gaze directly. Commonwealth has a reputation for retaining staff during acquisitions. That matters to me. Julian studied me for a long moment. Family businesses are complicated, he said finally. This isn't about family anymore, I replied. It's about doing the right thing for the people who built these hotels. 2 days later, Commonwealth's legal team began drafting acquisition proposals. Meanwhile, I contacted Miguel and other key staff members at the 3 properties, discreetly informing them of potential changes and assuring them their positions would be secure. The news broke faster than expected. A hospitality industry blog published a piece speculating about Sneered's financial troubles and Commonwealth's interest in their prime locations. Danielle's response was immediate, a company-wide email denying any plans to sell properties and reaffirming Sneered's strong market position. Then my father called, his voice weary. The board rejected her proposal to sell. Good, I said simply. She's furious. Says you're undermining the company. He paused. She found out about your meetings with Commonwealth. I remained silent. Brandon, he sighed, what are you trying to accomplish here? The question hung between us, heavier than he knew. What was I trying to accomplish? Revenge? Justice? Or something more fundamental? A reckoning long overdue? I'm protecting what I built, I answered finally. The same way you taught me. 3 weeks later, Sneered's stock dropped 12% following a quarterly report showing declining revenue and increasing costs. That same day, I received a formal request from the board, minus Danielle, for a meeting to discuss strategic alternatives for challenged properties. My lawyer and Julian's team prepared for the meeting meticulously. When the day came, I walked into Sneered's conference room for the first time since my dismissal. Danielle sat at the head of the table, face tight with barely controlled anger. Our father sat to her right, looking every bit his 70 years. Board members filled the remaining seats, their expressions carefully neutral. I took my place at the opposite end, opened my portfolio, and waited for them to make the first move. Let's be clear about what's happening here, Danielle began, her voice clipped.
My brother is attempting a hostile takeover of the company our father built. Incorrect, I replied calmly. I'm simply exercising my rights as a property owner. Commonwealth Hotels is interested in acquiring buildings Scareach no longer wishes to maintain, given the new lease terms. Vincent Ross cleared his throat. The board never approved selling those properties. The board was presented with misleading information, I countered, sliding folders to each member. These documents show that while serving as president of Scareach, Danielle was simultaneously developing a competing hotel chain targeting the same markets. The room went silent. My father's face drained of color as he opened his folder. This is absurd, Danielle sputtered. Kessler Vision is a consulting firm, not a hotel development company. With permit applications in 3 cities where Scareach operates, I finished for her, with a business plan explicitly stating its intention to leverage expertise and clientele developed at Scareach. Our father turned to her, betrayal evident in his expression.
Is this true? Her silence was answer enough.
I continued. Commonwealth's offer exceeds market value for the properties. It includes guarantees to retain all current staff and honor existing customer commitments.
I paused. Something Danielle's venture had no intention of doing.
You've been planning this for years, he accused, voice shaking. Buying the land, waiting to spring your trap. No, I corrected. I bought the land to protect our family business. You're the one who decided I wasn't part of that family anymore. The board voted unanimously to accept Commonwealth's offer, with one abstention, our father, who sat motionless throughout the proceedings.
As the meeting concluded, Danielle stormed out without a word. Vincent approached me afterward.
The board will be requesting Danielle's resignation tomorrow, he said quietly. We'll need interim leadership while we restructure.
I shook my head. That won't be me. I've made other arrangements.
1 year later, I stood on the rooftop terrace of the former Westbrook Hotel, now the flagship of Commonwealth's Northeast Collection. The property had been renamed the Harbor View, but much remained unchanged. Miguel still ran maintenance. Most of the staff had stayed on, and guests still enjoyed the same ocean views that had made it special.
Julian joined me, handing over a quarterly report.
Revenue up 17% from last year. You were right about the local market potential. As consulting director for Commonwealth's regional properties, I worked primarily behind the scenes, negotiating with suppliers, mentoring staff, ensuring quality standards. No corner office, no power suits, no board politics, just the work itself, which was all I'd ever wanted.
Have you seen your father?
Julian asked carefully.
I nodded. Monthly dinners. He's adjusting to retirement.
After the takeover, he'd stepped down from Scareach entirely. The company still operated 5 properties, though none were performing as well as the ones Commonwealth had acquired.
And your sister?
Kessler Vision filed for bankruptcy protection last month. I said it without satisfaction or regret. Turns out hotel development requires more than ambition and a business degree. We stood in comfortable silence, watching boats navigate the harbor. Eventually, Julian left for another meeting, and I remained alone with my thoughts.
My phone buzzed with a text from my father. Dinner tonight. Bring in the grandkids.
I smiled and confirmed. My niece and nephew weren't responsible for their mother's actions, and I'd made sure my relationship with them remained intact throughout the corporate turmoil. As the sun began to set, I took one last look at the property. Not just the building, but the land beneath it, the foundation that made everything else possible.
In the end, that's what Danielle had never understood.
Success wasn't about who sat in the biggest office or who had the fanciest title. It was about creating something solid enough to weather any storm. I turned away from the view and headed downstairs. Time to prepare for dinner with family.
The part's worth keeping anyway.
Commoners who don't even understand the distinction between prime and cheap beefsteaks are wasting their money. I'll cover the cost, so hurry up and turn it in.
Exactly. You're not supposed to be here. You know, this is for our elites.
The man dumped a number of cash onto our table after taking them out of his wallet. There was nothing but UGL in his smirk.
While I considered my response, Ken Anderson is my name. Grandma and I went to a fancy steakhouse today to celebrate the anniversary of my first day of college. Congratulations, Kent. You performed admirably. Eat a lot today. My grandmother gave me a soft smile that made me feel tickled. Grandma, thank you. It's a little awkward. What do you say? Don't hold back. You've done something incredible. Well, I wish I could have shown this to your grandpa, too, how much Kent has grown. Grandma gave a pitiful smile. If I could give my grandfather back even a small portion, that would be wonderful. Yes, Grandma was the only person present here today. Your parents, too, they are watching from above. Yeah, I think so, too.
When I was a child, my parents had died. A road accident was the cause of death. Like something out of a thriller, they were struck by a car that ran a red light. I had nowhere to go when I was in elementary school. In the end, my grandparents took me in. Grandma gave me gentle consolation as I struggled to accept reality. On the other hand, Grandpa didn't seem to care at all.
Kent, look for yourself. Please don't bother Grandma. George, don't say that. I detested Grandpa at the moment.
I felt as though I had no place once my parents passed away. I consequently joined a terrible group, began hanging out with bad companions, got into daily arguments, and behaved horribly in class.
I never heard from Grandpa about it. Kent, did you get into another fight? Don't worry, Grandma. Why would you do that? Stop talking. It's not your concern.
Grandpa and I had a lot of disagreements. I had believed that we would never be able to comprehend one another. Then one day, Grandpa suddenly passed away. I was a freshman in high school at the time. His chronic angina had worsened, leading to his demise.
I had a hole in my heart because the person I used to argue with every day was gone. It was then that Grandma handed me a letter.
Grandpa left this for you. When he dies, give it to Kent. He's not honest.
Inside the envelope, neatly written with a token, was a letter written on 2 sheets.
I read through the densely written letter. It talked about how cold he had been to me after my parents passed away because he wanted me to look forward and live without getting depressed. How he worried about me. How he couldn't express himself honestly. Various things were written there. Learn as much as you can while you can. Explore the world and find a path where you can live as yourself, Kent. I hope for that. Please forgive me for only being able to express myself in this way.
That's how the letter ended. I later heard from my grandma that whenever I was bad at school and the school called them, my grandpa went to school and apologized.
Grandpa asked your teachers for you, Kent. He lost his parents when he was young and couldn't raise you in a proper environment. Kent's suffering is coming to the surface, so please forgive him. Now, when I heard those words, tears just started flowing uncontrollably. I didn't know that at all. I never realized Grandpa cared about me that much.
It turns out he only decided to tell me about it when he got sick and wrote me that letter. I thought there was only one thing I could do in return.
I'll study harder and try to find my path. Maybe then I can face Grandpa. You don't have to be bound by Grandpa's wishes, but learning and exploring the world are still very important. It will surely benefit you someday. From that day on, I made it my goal to study with the aim of seeing different parts of the world. At first, things didn't go smoothly. My friends were creeped out by me for suddenly studying hard. Classmates were initially wary and kept their distance, but gradually that changed.
And by the time I graduated from high school, I had made friends like everyone else. And then, are you going to apply to this college? Yes.
Honestly, with your current academic ability, I'm not sure if studying every day will even guarantee you pass.
I understand. But still, I want to give it a try. All right, I'll support you as much as I can. There must have been some kind of trigger.
I had set my sights on a goal. I studied hard toward that goal. As a result, I was able to pass for my desired college. Honestly, at first, I didn't even know how to study, and I felt like giving up many times because I couldn't do it. But every time I was supported by reading Grandpa's letters. On the day the results were announced, I leaped into Grandma's arms and couldn't help but shout without caring who saw us. It feels nostalgic. Even though it's only been a little while since then, it feels like such a long time ago. That's right, I was really close to flipping over that time. Come on, let's eat. The course meal here is really delicious. I decided that if you passed, I would treat you to a special course here. Grandma happily waved at the waitstaff. Thank you for waiting. We'd like the full course I reserved. For the main, we'd like the prime steak.
Sure. Thank you for the reservation. Please enjoy your meal.
Shortly after ordering, the course meal was brought to our table. From the drinks to the appetizers, everything looked and tasted as beautiful and delicious as Grandma had said. Seeing Grandma delighted made me very happy, too. We chatted as we savored the delicious dishes. Up until that moment, I thought today was going to be a very good day. Here is the main course, the prime steak. Please feel free to use the accompanying sauce and rock salt to your liking. The main dish was Grandma's favorite, the prime steak. I had heard that she always had it on anniversaries with Grandpa and on important family occasions, so I guess that's why she chose it this time, too. As I admired the glossy dish in front of me, a woman approached us and spoke.
Excuse me, could you give that to us instead? What did you say?
A young couple from the adjacent table was staring at us. It was a woman who spoke, wearing a smug smile.
Give it to us. What do you mean?
Come on, the main course. You're also having the course meal, right? We came to the restaurant in the mood for the prime steak, but they said you guys bought the last ones. We got here first, so what's going on? We'll pay you back if it's about money, so could you please give it to us? I frowned at the word, which was entirely false. Besides, I couldn't think of her as a sane person to give her food.
I have no idea about that, and my grandma made a reservation for us. The couple smirked at my words.
Grandma? You can't even speak properly. Yeah, are you a student? This isn't the kind of place for kids like you, you know. I was left speechless by their baseless accusations. As I stood there dumbfounded, the couple continued their barrage of words. Oh, you're here to dress up and eat, huh? It's a waste for commoners who don't even know the difference between prime and cheap beefsteak. Hurry up and hand it over. I'll pay for it.
Exactly. You shouldn't be here. This is for our elites, you know.
The man pulled out several bills from his wallet and tossed them onto our table as if flinging them. His smirk was nothing short of repulsive, as I pondered how to respond at that moment.
Could you please cut it out?
It was Grandma who raised her voice, staring at the couple with a piercing gaze. Grandma straightened her back and spoke firmly. Today is my grandson's important celebration day. It's incredibly rude and lacking in manners for you to demand things like that without any decorum. Whatever the old hag says won't faze me. It's just jealousy from a poor person. Getting irritated by those words, I was about to stand up from my seat, but Grandma stopped me with one hand. Her eyes were filled with unmistakable anger, causing me to involuntarily hold my breath.
Is it appropriate for you to say such things to me?
And what's your point? Are you trying to invoke seniority here? This isn't some outdated era, you know. Well, you guys are employees of City Bank, according to the emblem on the chest of the suit. I had some assets left by my late husband, and I had entrusted them to City Bank for safekeeping. If there are employees like you, I can't entrust my assets with peace of mind. so I've decided to transfer them to another bank. Upon hearing those words, the couple initially had a puzzled expression but soon burst into laughter. Ha ha! Assets? They must be insignificant anyway, right? Trying to intimidate us won't work. Yeah, seriously. If you think you can do something, go ahead and try. It's getting boring. I don't want the main dish in front of you. It's got the smell of poverty. I couldn't take their condescending attitude anymore. The meal was ruined. Grandma, I'm sorry. Let's call it quits for today's meal. In the end, ignoring the disrespectful couple, we silently packed up our food and left the restaurant. Until the end, that couple kept whispering and gossiping about us. After leaving the restaurant, Grandma apologized with a wry smile, saying, "I'm sorry for making you feel bad." "Grandma, you don't need to apologize. It's their fault." "Yeah, they need to be held accountable properly. Could you stay with me for a bit?" "Sure." I followed Grandma. "Don't worry. Those two must be punished. Afterwards, let's go eat some delicious food again." Grandma headed towards Citibank. Citibank is the largest bank in this town, and I knew that Grandma had entrusted the inheritance she received from Grandpa to them. The account my parents had set up for me was also with Citibank, and Grandma managed it for me. Grandma approached the reception desk in silence and spoke to the clerk. "Excuse me, is the branch manager available? I'm Helen, who always relies on your assistance." Upon hearing those words, the receptionist widened her eyes slightly and immediately flashed a smile. "Mrs. Helen Anderson. Thank you as always. Could you wait a moment?" "Yes, please." "It seems Grandma is quite well known at this bank." The branch manager, who came out immediately, greeted my grandma. "Helen, thank you for always having our service. How can I assist you today?" "It's been a while, Robert. You seem well. Thank you for your concern. Well, today I came here because I want to change the bank where I have my account." "Huh?" The branch manager's eyes widened at Grandma's words. Whether he understood the meaning or not, his complexion turned pale as Grandma continued speaking. "We've been greatly supported by Citibank since my late husband was alive, and we had hoped to continue that relationship. But today was an important day for me and my grandson. Coincidentally, Citibank employees happened to be sitting next to us and demanded our food." "What happened?" The branch manager was speechless with astonishment. Unbothered by his shock, Grandma continued speaking. "I've really trusted you all this time, but I never imagined something like this would happen. I want to transfer the $30 million I've deposited here to another bank." "That's a lot of money." The staggering amount that came out of Grandma's mouth made me involuntarily gasp. While I knew Grandpa was wealthy, I never expected it to be to this extent. Even the receptionist's face turned pale at Grandma's words. "I deeply apologize on behalf of our staff. It was your employee who told me to do it. If I could transfer the account, I'm truly sorry. How can I possibly apologize? I'm terribly sorry." "But about that employee?" They were just at a place called Grand Vent. It was a woman with shoulder-length blonde hair and a man in a navy suit." "Oh, I'm really sorry. We'll address it right away. Could you please wait here?" With the branch manager's feeble apology, Grandma replied, "Understood," and was escorted to the room. After a while, the couple with pale faces and the branch manager entered the room. Grandma sighed and spoke to the couple, who remained silent. "Hello again. I've come here to handle some paperwork as you suggested. My name is Helen Anderson, and my husband George Anderson." The man's face turned pale at her words. "Oh, could this be George from our VIP list? The local wealthy individual?" "I'm terribly sorry. We deeply apologize for the behavior of our staff. We have no words to express our regret for causing such discomfort." This was the first time I felt so disgusted. Not only do you belittle our family's precious time, but you also insulted my grandchild. Please don't think a mere apology is enough to make amends for that. I will transfer the $30 million to another bank. I want you to take responsibility for your own words. I'm amazed that a man like you exists in society, Grandma said in a calm and cold voice. Upon hearing this, the man seemed to snap. He stood up and shouted, "Well, it's your fault for looking so shabby. Shouldn't you dress more appropriately for an important occasion? Oh, I see. You're lying about being George's wife to trap us, just to set us up." Leon. I sighed heavily at his pathetic sight. What was the apology just now for?
We were utterly flabbergasted by his selfish behavior.
You're fired without question. Right now. How dare you treat customers like that, the branch manager snapped. I'm the #1 in sales performance at this bank. I'm the top ace of this bank. Firing me over something like this would be a huge loss. There's no one else like me to replace. Do you even understand what you're saying?
Keeping a dangerous element like you in the company is more of a risk to the company.
Leon, even at this point, still hadn't given up. Glaring at us, he continued speaking.
You know, when I think about it, I didn't even want to eat the prime steak in the first place. It's all because she wanted it. Yay, that's right. I wouldn't have even approached you guys if she hadn't said that. Hey, why are you blaming me for this?
As the couple started squabbling loudly, our anger only grew. For this couple, apologies were the last thing on their minds. They didn't even consider for a millisecond that their behavior might be wrong.
Unable to tolerate it any longer, I spoke up before Grandma could. Why don't you guys stop that ugly argument?
Their quarrel stopped with the echo of my quiet voice. However, the man who couldn't control his anger bit at me.
Don't talk to me. Shut up, brainless kid. Who's brainless?
It reminded me of something Grandpa once told me when I was young. Back then, when I was bullied by kids about my parents' death, my grandpa said,
Kent, don't pay attention to those kinds of people. They are the brainless. Don't become like them. I couldn't accept it back then, thinking it was about me. But now it's different.
Gratitude toward Grandpa. Gratitude toward Grandma. Feelings about my parents, various things have mixed together to make me who I am now.
Wanting to see various worlds, I studied hard to get here.
I pulled out my phone and showed a certain screen to the man in front of me. I'm not as dumb as to be called brainless. I've put in some effort, and I don't think I'm as brainless as you seem to think. It was a picture of myself holding a bouquet taken in front of the gate of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. It's difficult for a brainless to get into MIT, don't you think? I said provocatively.
The man's eyes widened and he collapsed to his knees.
I've met many people and clashed with many people in my life. But meeting someone like you who lacks substance and overestimates themselves is a first for me. I never want to become someone like you. There are no words that suit you better than brainless.
Well then, Grandma, let's go home.
Leaving the dumbfounded couple and the branch manager behind, I took Grandma's hand and left the bank.
You've grown up so much. You may have a sharp tongue, but Kent, you're okay now.
I will never forget the face of my grandma who laughed with tears in her eyes in the end. The next day, the branch manager came to apologize with a gift of sweets. The branch manager was not entirely responsible, but he took charge and didn't escape demotion. Because my education for him really wasn't good enough, no wonder your account is transferred to another bank. We'll process it that way, the branch manager said.
He apologized to Grandma several times, and Grandma laughed and talked to him. Well, I was actually planning the transfer, but since those two are no longer around, right? Citibank has a wide network, so those two will probably have a tough time for a while. In that case, I can trust Citibank again. They were George's favorites, after all.
According to what I heard from the branch manager, Leon and Hannah were fired on the spot after that. It seems they were also hit with the demand for compensation and damages. Given that it's a major corporation, finding the next job will probably be tough.
Kent, happy birthday. How's your studies? Yay! Keeping up with the studies is tough, but it's a lot of fun. I see. What's wrong?
Well, your grandpa, you know. He was just like you. Really like looking in a mirror.
Really?
On my birthday, Granddad suggested celebrating again at that same restaurant. Grandma made the reservation as he had declared.
Your grandpa is very naughty too. Oh, did he? I couldn't help but express my surprise at this revelation.
Yay! We used to fight every day. There were always bruises. When his mother passed away, he regretted it so much. He felt like he couldn't do anything. I guess he didn't want Kent to feel the same way. Every time Kent came home after a fight, he was really worried. He should have just asked Kent how he was doing at school, if he had friends, you know.
Oh, really? I see. Grandpa, he was worried about me?
Grandpa must have made mistakes somewhere along the line too, and he was reflecting on them as he lived. He treated me in a way that would prevent me from having those regrets. Everyone makes mistakes. What's important is what you learn from them and how you live your life afterward.
That's what I learned from this experience.
I'm sure I'll face various challenges in the future, but like Grandpa taught me, I want to explore my own path and live my life according to what I learned from my failures.